If you're about to scroll past this, hold on. I'm 76 years old, sitting here talking about dating on the internet. If that doesn't tell you how my life turned out, I don't know what will. But this isn't a love story. This is the story of how I almost gave away everything I had left. About a year ago, I started seeing someone. My wife Mary died in a car accident almost 3 years before that. My daughter Sarah called me one day and said, "Dad, it's been 3 years. You can't just sit in that house alone." Everyone around me said the same thing. "Walter, you can't die alone." Like being alone was some kind of disease. So I met someone, Janet. She was a good person, I mean that. She wasn't the problem. But about 6 months in, I realized something that shook me. When you start something because you're scared of being alone, it'll take more from you than the loneliness ever did. I almost handed over my whole life. 40 years of pushing paper, saving every dollar I could. The quiet that Mary and I built in this house over 50 years. The slow, quiet life I finally found after a mini stroke at 73. All of it. Almost gone. To someone I'd known for 6 months. Right now I'm sitting in this chair. A cup of coffee in the morning is enough for my day. The house is quiet. You think that sounds lonely? A year ago I would have said yes. But now I know. This quiet is what I spent my whole life looking for. What I almost lost to get here. And why a forced relationship after 60 is more dangerous than loneliness. You need to stay for all of it. The last thing I say will probably be the hardest to hear. The first few months after Mary died, I was just numb. I didn't even know I was grieving. I'd wake up in the morning and make 2 cups of coffee, set one across the table. Then a while later, I'd look at it and think, oh, and put it away. That went on for about 3 months. What comes after that isn't sadness, it's silence. When there's no one in the house, there's no sound. You turn on the TV and no one responds. You make dinner and there's no one sitting across from you. You can't sleep at night and the only sound you hear is yourself. In 76 years of living, I had never known quiet like that. Weekends were the longest. Saturday morning to Sunday night. That's a long stretch when you're alone. When Mary was alive, I never noticed. I never realized how long a weekend actually is. It's not that I had nothing to do. It's that I had no one to do it with. Grocery store, alone. Church, alone. Lunch, alone. And it's not 1 week or 2 weeks. It's every week. Every Saturday comes around, and the same silence comes with it. That's when people start talking. Folks at church say, "Walter, this isn't good for you." My daughter says, "Dad, you need to meet people." Even the doctor says, "You should get more social activity." When a 76-year-old man sits alone, the world treats it like a problem, like a broken machine, something to fix, something to fill, something to solve. And I started believing it too, that this silence wasn't normal, that the answer was finding someone, that loneliness is a problem and a person is the cure. 76 years on this earth, and I never thought to question that one thing. When you're scared of being alone, your judgment dies. And when your judgment dies, you open any door that shows up. The first month with Janet was fine. Honestly, it was nice. Having someone to eat dinner with, getting a message on my phone, having somewhere to go on the weekend. The silence seemed to disappear. I thought, well, everyone was right after all. But around the second month, things started going sideways. Janet looked at my old sage green shirt and said, "Walter, you need to throw that out. You should dress better." That shirt was Mary's favorite. I'd worn it for 15 years and it fit my shoulders perfectly. It was worn in all the right places. That shirt knew my body. The new one Janet bought me was stiff and scratchy. It felt like someone else's clothes. Then it was the living room. Where Mary's photo used to sit, Janet put one of her scented candles. Mary's blanket got folded up and pushed into the closet. Small things, each one on its own. But when they pile up, one day you're standing in your own house and it doesn't feel like yours anymore. Mary and I made this place ours over 50 years, and in less than 6 months it was starting to feel like somebody else's home. And then there was the time. Time at 76 is not the same as time at 36. I don't know how many Saturdays I have left. And I was spending those Saturdays at Janet's brunch gatherings, listening to Janet's family drama, driving to places I didn't want to go, with a body that already had a mini stroke at 73. At some point it hit me. This isn't a relationship, this is a job. I'm clocking in to spend what's left of my life. One night I couldn't sleep, so I opened my bank account. The number had gone down. When did this happen? That was the first time I felt real fear. It wasn't loneliness that scared me. It was the moment I felt this relationship eating into my retirement. That was the real terror. If I only tell you my story, you might think, well, that's just your situation. So let me tell you about someone else. Larry. We worked at the same company for 30 years. 2 years older than me. He lost his wife to cancer. 5 years before I lost Mary. Larry did the same thing I did. Sat alone for about a year, then met someone. He remarried at 72. At first it looked good. It had been a long time since I'd seen Larry smile. But a year later, his son stopped taking his calls. It was about money. The new wife put her name on the house, and his son and daughter turned their backs on him. Larry said, "That's not who she is. She wouldn't do that." 2 years later, Larry was divorced. The house was split in half. His kids never came back. I ran into him one day at a coffee shop. He wasn't the same person. He just sat there turning his cup around and around. Then he said this, "Walter, I got a wife, but I lost my kids." That was it. After that, Larry left Cedar Falls. I never heard from him again. After I heard Larry's story, I sat with it for a while. I told myself it was his situation, not mine. I'm different. I'm not going to remarry. But 4 months into things with Janet, I was lying in bed one night staring at the ceiling, and Larry's face came to me. That face in the coffee shop when he said he got a wife but lost his kids. And I thought, I'm on the same road. Because by then Janet had already started bringing up the house. At first it was casual. "Walter, this house is too big for one person." Then it was, "Wouldn't it be easier if we lived together someday?" One day she mentioned my insurance beneficiary, like a joke, but I knew it wasn't a joke. The account I had set aside for my grandkids' college was already noticeably smaller after just 4 months. Keep going like that, and in 2 years there'd be nothing left for when my body gives out. Larry lost half his house and all of his children. The only reason I stopped before I got there was pure luck. The strange thing is, this isn't just my story and Larry's story. At church, at the grocery store, in hospital waiting rooms, when you watch men over 60 who ended up alone, they almost all do the same thing. First, they hold on. After about a year, the silence gets scary. Then people around them start pushing, and they open whatever door shows up. And somewhere between 6 months and 2 years, they realize, this isn't what I wanted. For 40 years, I watched people at the office. After retirement, I kept watching people, so I can see the pattern. After 60, loneliness hits different. When you're 30, loneliness is uncomfortable. When you're 60, it's terrifying. The terror of thinking, am I going to die like this? When that terror is what moves you, fear makes the decisions, not judgment. It's not about who you meet. you'll meet anyone. Janet wasn't a bad person. I was a scared person who opened the first door I saw. In 50 years with Mary, I never once felt this way. Not because Mary kept me from being lonely. It's because as long as Mary was there, I never had to learn how to be alone. So when she was gone, I was 76 years old, and I didn't know how to sit by myself. That was the real problem, not the loneliness, not knowing how to be alone. Let me tell you about the numbers I saw that night. There's an account for my granddaughter Grace's college fund. Mary and I put money into it for over 10 years, little by little. That account was down $3,000 from 4 months ago. Dinners, weekend trips, Janet's birthday gift, dues for her friend group gatherings I never wanted to go to. None of it was one big expense. $80, $120, $65. Small amounts, but small amounts add up to $3,000. 10 years of putting money away and 5 months was all it took to start a hole. I pulled out a calculator. At this rate, 1 more year and $10,000 disappears. 2 years, and it reaches the emergency medical fund I set aside after my mini-stroke at 73, when the doctor warned me the next one could be bigger. When a 76-year-old man gets sick and the money is gone, that's the end. You either beg your children for help, or you end up in some cheap facility where strangers you've never met decide when you eat and when you sleep. The moment that thought hit me, my hands started shaking, physically shaking. But it wasn't just the money. When I mentioned Janet to Sarah on the phone, her voice changed. "Dad, how long have you known this woman?" My daughter had never spoken to me in that tone before. David was more direct. My son, who barely manages a 3-minute call on Christmas, went out of his way to phone me and say, "Dad, you're not putting her on the house, are you?" My son wasn't worried about his father. He was worried about the inheritance. That's not something to feel sorry about. That's reality. What happened to Larry was starting to happen to me. My body was talking too. Running around every weekend to keep up with Janet's schedule, I stopped sleeping. My blood pressure went up. This is a body that already had a mini-stroke at 73. The doctor told me to reduce stress. Instead, I was spending every week managing someone else's feelings, sitting through conversations I didn't want to have, driving to places I had no reason to be. One morning I looked in the mirror, and my face looked 5 years older than it did 3 months before. That night I made the decision, at my desk in the study, looking at the numbers. This isn't a relationship. I'm bleeding money. I'm watching my retirement disappear. The next day I told Janet, "Let's stop this." She cried. I was sorry. Janet was a lonely person too. But I'm 76 years old, and the scariest thing about the time I have left isn't dying alone. It's getting sick and broke with no way out. It took me 5 months to figure that out. There's something people get wrong. Being alone and being lonely are not the same thing. Being alone is just where you are. Being lonely is how you feel. I was lonelier with Janet than I ever was by myself. Sitting next to someone who wants you to be someone you're not, while you're missing someone who's never coming back. That's real loneliness. Sitting by yourself with a cup of coffee is not loneliness. That's peace. After 60, the world tells you that you shouldn't be alone, that you need to find someone. But nobody tells you this. By the time you've made it to 60, you've already spent decades adjusting yourself for other people. You adjusted at work, you adjusted at home, you adjusted for everybody around you. That adjusting is finally over, and now you're going to go adjust yourself for a stranger all over again? Why? The real danger isn't loneliness. The real danger is the decisions you make because loneliness scares you. You can survive loneliness, But the money you lose in the wrong relationship, the health you burn through, the trust your children lose in you, that doesn't come back. 76 years of living taught me this. People don't regret losing things. People regret losing things they never had to lose. Being alone isn't a punishment. It's what you earned after 70 years of working, enduring, adjusting, and holding on. It took me 5 months, $3,000, and cold phone calls from my children to understand that. You don't have to pay that price. Some of you watching this right now are alone, and someone in your life is pushing you to meet someone. Before you listen to them, remember 3 things. First, when someone tells you to find a partner, ask them this: if my savings start disappearing, are you going to cover it? Nobody will answer that. Your retirement is yours. Nobody else is going to protect it. That's on you. Second, when you feel lonely, don't look for a person. Build a routine, a morning walk, coffee at the same time every day, a phone call to your kids once a week. People can leave. A routine doesn't leave. A routine will protect you longer than any person will. Third, if the quiet in your house scares you, remember this: that quiet is what you earned over 70 years of living. Don't hand it over to someone you've known for a few months. I almost did. If this meant something to you, send it to someone in your life who's alone right now. I still have stories I haven't told you. Things I watched and learned over 40 years. Things I only understood after Mary was gone. If you want to hear them, hit subscribe. I'll be right here in this chair, same coffee, same seat. I don't know how many more of these I have in me, but as long as I can, I'll keep going.